Hello, my friends. You know, sometimes somebody will ask you to do something that you really already wanted to do anyway. And their request just becomes an excuse. An internet friend of mine, after viewing one of my videos on my steel guitar, asked me if I'd do something on that Irish harp up against the wall. And that was one of those times. That was just an excuse to do something I already wanted to do. I'm not a really I don't know what I am. You know, everything I play, I just noodle at it. I just love the sounds that they make, and sometimes I learn actual songs on them. I actually it's been a long time since I've sat down and pulled out a book and read music for this thing and known technically what I was doing. But I just love the sounds that it makes, and so I play on it. This is a Dusty Strings Allegro. It's a 26-string harp, made in the United States. It's kind of what you'd call a student-level harp. The really guitar players don't have the same kind of choices of instruments as harpers do. Notice I call myself a Harper. If you got one of those big things that costs more money than my house is worth, and it has pedals around the base of it, it's called a pedal harp. And if you play one of those, you're a harpist. This is a Celtic harp, or Irish harp, but mostly by the people who play them known as Celtic harps. This may be the most ancient stringed instrument that remains among humans, or at least a descendant of it. We had drums. Then people started to hunt with a bow. And they saw that deer and they put the arrow in there and they went. And they said, wow, man, that's pretty cool. Let's tie another one in there. Let's tie another one in there. And they tied one in, and they tied one on, and they tied one around, and then they discovered this thing called the pentatonic scale. And nobody knows exactly how they discovered that pentatonic scale, but we do know that all over the world, in Africa, and in Asia and Europe, and all the places that we can find any proof of what people used to do with instruments before they invented recording them and carrying them around and getting paid large fortunes to play them very well. They invented this same thing, and it was called the pentatonic scale. Well, not by them. That's what we call it. Penta means 5. Tonic means tone. And I'm not going to play one right now because I've got this harp tuned to an open E flat, but I'm playing in the key of C minor. And I just haven't got enough brain power right now to translate that all around and get you a pentatonic scale. And maybe some other day, you know, friends. Maybe some other day. Maybe some other year. These Celtic harps, this is a real diatonic instrument. Those of you who play guitar, and especially those of you who know these cigar box guitars that I love so much and play so often, we tune those in an open chord. And we call them a diatonic instrument, but that's not a diatonic instrument. That's a chromatic instrument tuned in an open chord. You can get any note in the entire scale off that instrument without doing anything except moving your fingers. What diatonic means is stepwise. It means one step at a time. This instrument has 7 unique strings for each octave. Since it's tuned in an open E flat, it starts here. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. And then the do repeats. Because everybody knows you can never have too much do. And on this instrument, so that you can tell where you are, the strings are color-coded. The red strings are C notes, and the black or blue strings, which is not universally agreed upon, are F notes. And even if you go to a concert hall and you walk up to a $35,000 pedal harp sitting on the floor, you'll notice that it has red strings and it has black strings, because it has 60 some odd strings, and you just can't be a mortal human being and look at them in the middle of that thing and pick one. So you gotta have something to tell you where you are. It doesn't matter what it's tuned in, those are still the C's. Okay, that's not the tonic on my scale. My tonic on my major scale that I'm tuned in is an E flat. That's the white string below the blue string. So that's E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D, E flat. The reason I choose to do that is because these levers on the sides of this thing, these are what changes your pitch. I can play it in more than the key it's tuned in by moving the strings, by moving the levers. So if I move all my E levers up, then my E's are no longer flatted. And I'm playing in the key of A flat, and I would have to start here. Maybe that's not right, maybe I'm playing in B flat, hell, I don't know. Anyway, when I'm a little sharper, I know what I'm doing there, and I can change those around. I kind of like C minor though, so a lot of the time I just tune it in open E flat and play in C minor. But if I want to play something major sounding, I can do that just by starting on the E flat, because that's my tonic of a major scale. And that's your Welcome to Heaven sound. But any major scale has a relative minor scale. And these strings will explain why, since these are tuned to the E flat major scale, the relative minor to that is the C minor. And that means you play all the same strings, but you start on a different tonic, and that's how you get a minor instead of a major. It's one way to think of how you get a minor instead of a major. Relationships are complicated. Who are steel guitar players wonder why I'm so fixated on not wearing picks. And that, of course, is because Harpers don't wear picks. And if I wore picks on one hand half the time, my little brain just couldn't cope with it. the harp in the bar like I do the guitar. They used to. I mean, you know, when the Celts were Celts and the Normans were a bunch of uncivilized rat bastards running around the south of France and hadn't taken over England yet. This was what they had. This was the electric guitar. This was the traveling man's musical instrument. So of course they played them in bars. And they sang dirty songs with him, and they sang rowdy songs with him. But I take mine to the nursing home, you know, the old people like this kind of stuff. And I don't tell them I don't know any songs. Because they're old and they don't care. They don't badger me about being better than I am. They're glad to hear what I bring them. And I give them the best I can.